there's a lot of misinformation about her that's online. So, um, I think it's important to set the story straight and to set the facts out there. So that's what I just try to do.
Would you say she got her like recognition for what she did only now in recent years, or right before, well, right after she showed her work in the 40s?
There was a good bit of attention that she and the program received in the 1940s and 50s. Just about every major publication, Saturday Evening Post was huge. It was a very big publication. Life magazine. I mean, that was the biggest at the time. It was the largest circulation publication, and the Boston Globe, and you name it. And she was covered. And then it's sort of there was all these articles at the time, and a lot of them focused on Frances Glessner Lee as this murder solving grandma, and either that she was not an investigator. It wasn't about murders. It was about justice, and focusing on these little creepy dioramas. And she was just an old rich lady, weird old lady who made dollhouses. I was going to say Corinne Botz's. You've seen Corinne Botz's book about the
No, I
picture
haven't.
book of
Oh yeah, of the natural studies of unexplained death. Yeah.
the photographs.
Yeah, yeah.
And that came out, I guess, around 2001, 2002. So it really only has been since the 21st century where she has started to be recognized for some of the things that she did.
Yeah, because I can imagine that it was very challenging for her to introduce this in a field that was predominantly male at the time.
Yeah.
How was she like, I mean, she had like articles written about her, but in the professional field, was she taken seriously or was this just...
I would imagine meeting her for the first time, you might be taken aback that here is this older woman who has no apparent business, doing what she's doing. But the thing is that she was so smart, and she really really knew her stuff. And those books that she donated to the library, the George McGrath Library, those were her books. She read them all. So, being I think that being fabulously wealthy
Mhm.
helps a little bit. That will get people to pay attention to you. But that's all it does is open doors. You still need to know what you're talking about, and you still need to make sense, and to have the strength of her personality. I mean, she was a force of nature, and so to have a meeting with J. Edgar Hoover and these sorts of things, and just the nerve of this woman is just amazing. She was always a person out of place.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that really comes through in the book, but there is this whole thing at the Rocks where there's the people who are up the hill and down the hill, the people who live there all the time, were the rich people who live up there. She was always she was a person in an academic world with no credentials. She was a woman in the man's world of law enforcement. She was never ever. Sadly, she was really never. She was always out of place. Whatever she was doing, she was out of place. Wherever she was living, she was working. Everything, she didn't belong, which I think is pretty sad.
Yeah. Even now, like, even though she got her recognition, I hope so many, like, in future, more people will know about her. Because the first time I read the book, I even heard about it. I was so surprised. I was like, is this even real? And the nutshells themselves, those of unexplained death that are being studied, for how long do you think they will be continued to be studied? And how are they being kept the way they are? Because I can imagine like such a small details, they are supposed to be taken care of to last longer.
They are. I haven't seen them in a couple of years. They underwent conservation by the Smithsonian back in 2017. They're in very, very good condition now. Uh, they've all been examined and looked at. They're extremely delicate. And Um, Maybe someday. I've seen several state-of-the-art 3D virtual reality things, and nothing comes close to a real object, even the highest definition. So until at some point in the future where somebody can recreate augmented reality or virtual reality that is as good as um, a real 3D object, I don't know, maybe 10, 20 years, be something like that. But they still serve a purpose, and they still have a valid educational purpose, and they're still used today as they are. And as long as they're not touched, they have been in their cabinets for decades and decades. And as long as they remain in their cabinets and nobody touches them, there's no reason why they can't last for another 100 years.
That was actually my next question is, did anyone try to recreate or follow Glessner Lee's steps by doing those dioramas?
Not to the degree that she has. There's a guy at I believe it's Tom Moriello or something like that. He's at University of Maryland College Park. He's retired now, and he did, I guess, maybe four or five or six little dioramas, different than the nutshells. Honestly, I've seen photos of his dioramas, and they look more like Lego sets. I mean, no disrespect, but they're not really at the same level. Um, there are still instances where there are criminal cases where their models are done for that investigation or for a prosecution. In terms of teaching, there's a few people doing interesting things. There is a at the University of Northern Michigan. There's a guy I know by the name of Dave Mastrick, and he recreated a different crime. He recreated it's Jeffrey McDonald, the Fatal Vision. It was this horrible thing. His whole family killed, a mother and two children, and he did the entire apartment. This thing's huge, in the same scale of 1 inch to 1 foot. And they not only have that crime scene, but they also have all the case material from that case. So they have witness statements and crime scene photos and all the investigative reports and everything. So students can reinvestigate that case. It's very controversial, but it's a very, very clever way of doing it, so that you have all the information that investigators had, and you can reinvestigate the case. So they're doing that at University of Wisconsin Parkside. She's now in Appleton. But they actually built life-size recreations of the nutshell studies, full size. I know, it's crazy. I have pictures of them on my Instagram, and it's just amazing. They're just amazing reproductions. And I mean, at the college level, that's all I'm aware of. There's a lot of places that have like crime scene rooms. They'll take the back of the room and they'll throw some paint, some fake blood on the floor and stuff like that, and make a little crime scene out of it. But it really, it really takes skills. It takes the skills of a miniatures. Now that could change because there's a lot of things going on in miniatures these days, new materials and new methods, and there's new polymers and 3D printing. So people are doing things with miniatures these days that are just, it couldn't be done 10, 15, 20 years ago. So, there's a lot of things going on in miniatures, and I would expect, I hope that there'll be more miniatures used for teaching. More people are learning about the methods, more people are learning about the value of miniatures, and I wouldn't be surprised if more start doing it.
Yeah, that would be actually very nice for students to learn even more. And I was wondering, how do you think, like, if, like, while Glessner Lee was creating those dioramas, do you think she knew how big this thing would become and how much it would help?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, um, it, no. I don't think that she, her Chicago Symphony Orchestra, she did the entire 90 pieces, and that's still on display. And that was just like that was a birthday present for her mom, just this thing that she did. No, I think that she would be a little surprised, maybe a little amused. Um, yeah, I don't know what she would think, but no, she was not. This was not at all what she had in mind.
And what do you think she was hoping that the nutshell would help with.
that they would be used for teaching. She was all about the teaching, that they have value. Um, there should be medical examiners coast to coast in the United States. There has been very little progress since
Yeah.
her death, and about half the country is still on the coroner system. And it's really less than ideal in many parts of the United States. So for all that she did, and she did an awful lot, there's nobody else like her today, and so there's been no progress. And all she wanted was whatever it takes to have a scientific death investigation.
Mhm.
They were just a tool. The nutshells were just a tool to a larger goal.
Yeah. And what do you think, what would you say was the impact of them? Because in certain way, it was a big thing, but at the same time, as you said, still United States, like it still has the old system. So what would you say
Yeah,
was the impact of it?
homicide detectives are a thing. The idea of starting a forensic investigation at the scene, and that's what they really get through to. Yeah, I've talked to a lot of police officers, um, a lot of homicide detectives, a lot of other, and they say that a murder scene is not like any other scene. You could be an experienced police officer, have years and years of experience in robbery, all kinds of things, but a murder scene is different, and it's different kind of evidence, and you have to approach it differently. But nobody was teaching that approach before Frances Glessner Lee. And these are little scenes. These are, it's the very basic. It's where it starts. It starts at the scene, and getting that idea across. That all originates from Frances Glessner Lee. We watch these TV shows and we see these guys, the CSI, and all these shows. But that's where it originated from, was Frances Glessner Lee, and we assume that every death is investigated that way, which is not. But even the fact that we expect that's because of Frances Glessner Lee.
And what would you think? I mean, like every single time now somebody asks me about the project and I tell them what it's on, and they think I'm going crazy. Like, what do you mean dioramas of crime scenes? What do you think? Like, how could she ever come up with something like this? I mean, like, you really, as you said, have to be like
By
smart.
necessity. By necessity, because nothing else worked. They talked it through. They talked it out. She and Alan Moritz, they had this problem. They came up with the curriculum for the homicide seminar, and obviously they need to see an autopsy. We're going to teach them about blades and sharp force injuries. We're going to tell them about strangulation. But how do you teach somebody about a crime scene? How do you teach somebody to observe without having something to look at? And I sort of, it's alluded to at several points throughout the book. There was an exhibit at the World's Fair where they had these photographs of these scenes and what do you think happened. And she's talking with McGrath about, I wish I could explain to a jury how to do this. So there is this, but in talking with Moritz, and Frances Lee said herself, you really can't do it with a photograph. You'd have to. It doesn't really adequately show the whole proximity and everything. Even with the moving picture, you'd have to zoom in and show the thing, and it's just not quite the same thing as showing somebody a space. I could teach you to look for a blood stain, but that's not the same thing as showing. You find it. There's a blood stain here somewhere. Look for it, and that's an entirely different exercise. And there's really no other way of doing it. It was an ingenious solution. I think that if VR existed at the time, she would have done VR, but she just had a solution for a problem. In her mind, it wasn't that big a deal. It was just, we got to teach these people something. How do we do it?
I was just thinking, like, of course, this topic is so interesting, but what really inspired you and I guess drove you to write her biography?
One was getting to work with the nutshell studies and to see them up close.
Mhm.
And I, you know, I when I started at the medical examiner's office, they basically threw the keys at me and they said, "It's your problem now. You deal with it." And it changed the light bulbs and those sorts of things. And I knew about them, but it's very different than opening up the cabinets and really looking at them and how they're built. And um, people would come and visit and they would ask these same questions over and over. What kind of person was she like? Why did she get involved in this? Was she avenging somebody's death? Um, why these cases? Did these mean anything? Are they, famous or something? And these are really pretty basic, obvious questions, and I didn't know. I didn't know the answer. I didn't know what got her, why she did this, or what she was like. And so um, I was talking with Bill Tyre, who is the curator of the Glessner House in Chicago, the museum now, and we were just sort of complaining. He came to visit, and we are talking about how there's all this misinformation. Yeah, it's a shame nobody's ever done a biography. Somebody ought to do a book someday. And then it got me to thinking, well, who could do something like that? Who is, you know, who would do a good job with it? And I could do that. Yeah, I could do that. So I suggested it to Bill, and then he basically got permission from the family, from the Lee's family, and they consented. So I had this access to all the papers, things that he's never, ever, ever given anybody else, and never will again, to see all the papers and everything. So, but I do have a treat for you, though.
Mm-hmm.
I will send you. I have some 3D VR images inside the dioramas,
Oh,
and I'll
wow.
send you the link. You put them on your cell phone, put them on your smartphone, hold it up sideways, hold it up like this. It takes about 15 seconds to load, and then you can look around. If you got goggles, it's even better, but it puts you inside the diorama. They're really pretty cool.
Wow.
But
Yes, I'm
I'll
very
send you
excited.
I'll send you those links.
Thank you so much. I really like the book, The 18 Tiny Deaths. Can't wait to finish it and can't wait to read your new book.
Thank you so much. You're very, very kind. I'll send you those links.
Yes.
Um, and if you got any questions or anything, I'm here anytime. I'm available anytime, literally.